And with that, we do have an awesome guest speaker with us here today from Selby Strategies. We have Judy Selby, who is an incredible performance coach. So thank you so much for being here with us today. I'll pull up the slides on my end and I will turn it over to you, Judy.
Thank you so much, Tandeka. That was amazing. And I can't think of a better person to do your job and probably any job. You exemplify and you give off this energy and vibe of a high performance mindset that is like, perfection. So I love it. It's a great way to kick us off. And hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining. As you know, my name is Judy Selby. I am a mental performance coach and a very, very experienced insurance coverage lawyer. Over 30 years of experience doing insurance coverage on the insurer side. I had a real focus for the past 12 to 15 years, I guess, on cyber and privacy. So handling those claims, assisting underwriters and claims personnel with cyber claims. And last September, I stepped away from my law firm at that time, and I wrote this book called The Untold Secrets to Thrive as a Lawyer, even if you didn't go to Harvard or Yale. And the feedback I hear consistently is that it's not just for lawyers. So when that book came out, I reached out to my friends at Spencer and asked whether they thought this would be a good idea for a webinar for you. And the answer obviously was yes. And here we are today. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I hope this will be interactive. I am terrible at monitoring chats when I am speaking. So Tandeka, I will rely on you to help me to do that.
Yes, I got you. I got you.
Excellent. I knew you were going to say that. So I am so excited about this topic because I doubt that it was ever discussed in any of your classes that you ever took in school. And it is just such a critical component after more than 30 years in professional services in the law firm environment, which can be a very, very stressful environment. My last firm was a global law firm. I've worked for big, big, big law firms over the years. And one thing that I have found without exception from my very, very first days as a baby lawyer is that the people who stand out, the people who differentiate themselves, the people who build that big brand, that big book of business, that big, great reputation, the people who get promoted and are, by all outside metrics, the most successful. There's something about them that is beyond them doing a good job. Doing a good job, mastering the technical skills of your job, is pretty much table stakes. It's expected now. But the thing that really, really makes people stand out and really thrive is the mindset, the energy, the vibe, the emotional foundations that they bring to the workplace. So I'm going to give you just a few examples of what that means to me, and then we'll dive right into the presentation. So as I was implying, your skills may get you in the door, although you still have to get through an interview, and people have to kind of fall in love with you. I talk about all that in my book, and but skills alone will not take care of your career. You really have to do more. And I have to tell you, in insurance and risk management in particular, and if you're in cyber or any cutting edge area of insurance and risk management, this is particularly true. Having a growth mindset where you're looking to always keep learning and taking on new responsibilities and putting in that extra time, which you're not technically getting paid for or doesn't count as billable hours if you're a lawyer. No client's going to write you a check for staying up to speed or actually getting ahead of the curve. That's the real value. Um, But these are the things that really, really make the difference in our particular field of insurance and risk management. So I mentioned this idea of a growth versus fixed mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, you're more inclined to say, I'm not good at something. I'm not good at Excel. Sorry, I was just born not good at Excel, or whatever it may be. I'm not good at public speaking. Versus somebody who will say, you know what, I need to improve. This is an opportunity for me to improve. And how do I go about doing that? What's one step I can take in that direction? And so obviously you can see the people who will achieve, and there's so much research, you guys, behind this, scientific studies to support this. The people with the growth mindset do so much better in the workplace than people with a fixed mindset. While we're talking about it, I'll give you a little tip. If you catch yourself saying something like, I'm just terrible at Excel, or I can't do Excel. At the end of that sentence, put the word yet. Say, I can't do Excel yet. And you're sending a whole different version, a different mind, a different thought into your brain, and versus a closed mindset saying, no way I'm ever going to be good at this. The other little trick you can do, which is really almost like a bucket of cold water being thrown at you. You say, I'm not good at Excel, and that's just the way I like it. Well, of course, you don't want to be like that. You don't want to have that be your way. Like, I'm terrible at public speaking, and I'm really happy about that. So these are little mind hacks you can use to prevent yourself from saying things like that. People with a high performance mindset are not afraid to do hard things. They don't view them as a struggle. They view it as growth, which means they are more likely to volunteer for hard things. They're really willing to put that hand up and say, I will do it. And they don't run away. And they look at it as a learning and growth opportunity. When you have a high performance mindset, it may not feel like it when you're a young, employee just starting out in the workforce, but you get so much more control over your career when you take ownership. When you blame and when you're a victim and everything is happening to you, what you're really saying is, I don't have power to change it. This is the way it is. I don't have any agency. I don't have any power to change this. But when you take responsibility and you look to do the hard things, it changes your mindset, and then you're able to work your way through. And it pays huge dividends in the long run and allows you to basically really own your career and how far you go. The other thing that high performance individuals are really great at is they're very resilient. We will all face problems at work and in our personal lives. And to the extent you think those are two separate things, they are not. But your ability to be resilient, to come back even better, not back to where you were. A lot of people say bounce back. Bounce back is fine. That implies, to me at least, you're kind of going back to where you were. But you want to take these struggles, any kind of challenges you're dealing with, and grow from them. People with a high performance mindset, they thrive in these areas, and they really make the most out of a resilient spirit. So that's a huge, huge issue. It also allows you to be a value adder versus like a check the box kind of person. So you're like, how am I doing? Am I doing this well? Am I really adding value? Like before this webinar today, say a little prayer, like I always do in these things, please let me add value. People are giving up their time. I relied on Tedeka and Ken to give me this opportunity. I want to make sure that I am adding value to everybody. And so if you approach whatever you're doing with that type of mindset versus what's the minimum I have to do to check the box and be done, it's again a real differentiator in the marketplace, and frankly in your whole life. And it certainly will get you noticed, and it will get you promoted. I remember being a young associate, and I was asked to update a section. Actually, I don't even think I was an associate. I think I was still a summer associate, still in law school. And a partner at a law firm I was working at asked me if I would do update a chapter and include a section at the end. So I did that on this big long paper, but I also checked all the case sites that he put in there, and I found some that need to be updated. And he said, "Who told you to do that?" And I was like, "Whoa." I said, well, nobody, but I saw it needed to be done. And he was like, "Oh, wow." And so I was instantly, a step ahead. So, kind of in conclusion on my long winded introduction, is your mindset determines how you show up, and how you show up every day determines how far you will go. So, having said all that, let's dive into the slides. And thank you for indulging me with that long intro. Um, so if we can go to the next slide, please. So what do I mean by your what your mindset is? And to me, your mindset is kind of a culmination of who you are as a human being. Even in the workplace, you bring your whole self into the workplace, and this is where a lot of people get it wrong. They think that they're a separate human being at work versus outside of work. But let me ask you something: if you are not feeling well, can you do as well in your job? If you're dealing with lots of issues at home, bad relationships with significant others, with friends, with children, can you do your job well, or you're just dealing with a lot of distractions? And so what I did here was break down 6 categories that I think, and this is very subjective, that I think represent an entire human being. And these are 6 categories where we're going to talk about this in a minute, where I suggest that you will look at each one individually and come up with certain goals and disciplines for each one, and make sure that you focus on each one of these things every day. Now, does that mean you're going to spend as much time worrying about your finances that you do at work? No, of course not. But what it means is that you don't sacrifice everything to focus on one thing. So let's say you're just starting out in your career and you're like, I'm really busy with work. I can't be worried about, what's going on with, my relationships, or with my personal growth. And what I mean by personal growth is, working on your mindset, working on your emotional control, working on your resilience, continuing to read and learn, and becoming a more evolved human being. Everything fits together. So if you flip over to the next slide, please. How do you figure out who you want to be, what in each of those categories? I would recommend that you pick an identity for each one of those categories. So for your relationship, let's say that you're married, you're a man who's married, and you have 2 kids. So part of your identity for your relationships would be like, I am a loving, caring dad. I am a loving husband, and I'm a great provider for my family. Something like that. When you establish an identity for each one of those 6 categories, they serve as your guidepost of who you are. People always act in accordance with their identity. You will never out-achieve what your identity is. So if you have an identity as a real loser, someone who will never do well at this or that, it's going to be very, very hard for you to achieve. And so I would recommend for each of those categories, like for me, not to get too personal, but for the health and fitness, I say I am fit, strong, and lean every single day. Now, that is my identity. And I tell myself that every day. Now, if I have relatives coming over, which just happened a couple of weeks ago, and they say, "Oh, Judy, we're in Virginia. We want to get that fried chicken they have at the gas station and have it for dinner." I'm like, "That's great. Get it. I'm not going to have it." Because that's not what somebody with that identity would do. And but how do you figure out what your identity should be? in each of those categories. These are the four things I would suggest that you consider to figure that out. So the number one thing has to be your values. What are your values as an individual? I can't tell anybody what their values are. I have something coming up later that shows you what mine are. I can honestly tell you they change a little sometimes over time. I tweak them. It could be semantics, but I think everybody has a set of core values. Those should always guide your identity and the person that you are bringing to the workplace and every other place you go. Then there's this concept called the burn. This is something that my personal coach, I have a mental performance coach that I work with. So I don't just coach other people, but I work with a coach myself. And he has this concept called the burn. And your burn can change over time, but it's what, like, your burning desire, a fire inside you that he says is, and I think he's right, which is a little different from your why or your purpose. So let's say that you have a burning desire to retire your parents. You know, your parents worked hard to put you through school and whatever the story may be, and you are bound and determined that you are going to retire your parents, or you are going to buy that house of your dreams. And so you keep that burn top of mind. You write it down, you think about it every day. That also guides you into the type of person you're going to be and the actions you're going to take. And then you have to decide. You have to decide what you're going to do on a daily basis to help you move towards these goals and towards this burn in consistency, in alignment with it. So how do you do that? You have certain daily disciplines, things that you do every day, whether it's reading every day, whether it's setting aside 20 minutes for each of your kids at night, whether it's, getting up early so your workout doesn't get scheduled out of your day. Especially as young professionals, you don't have as much control over your calendars as somebody more senior. So you need to get what I propose. You need a set of daily disciplines, things that you will do every day. And you'll tweak that over time. And you should ask yourself, like, every 30 days or so, what are the disciplines that are working really well for me this month? And what are my opportunities for improvement? So it's a little bit iterative, but I think you'll find it when people start to go off track, they're usually losing touch with these daily disciplines. So it's very, very important to do that. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is a worksheet that I created, and if anybody wants a copy of this, please reach out, and I'd be happy to send it to you. It's also, I think it lives on my website too. So these are those those 6 areas that I mentioned earlier. And there's also, I don't know if it's displaying well on this, there's also a line for you to put, a word for the year. I always like to pick a word for the year that guides me for the year. This year it's alignment. And you can't really be your best self if you're acting out of alignment with those goals, with those values, with those daily disciplines, etc. So here is my personal worksheet, all filled out with my horrific handwriting, which I hope you can't read. In each box on the left, I have 3 goals for the year under that category. And then right next to it, I have 3 habits. So I do that for each one of these things. And I read this multiple times every day. You can see I have it laminated. And so if I travel, it comes with me. So let's see. So for fitness and health, my first goal is to do 75 hard, which is a kind of exercise, mental toughness program, they call it, that involves 2 workouts a day, drinking a gallon of water a day, which I hate, reading a certain amount of entrepreneurial kind of book, no alcohol, staying on a diet, whatever that means to you, not prescriptive. And I think those are the main points. And you do it for 75 days straight. And if you, oh, you have to take a progress picture every day too. And if you miss anything, you have to start from the beginning. So it's been fun with this heat wave going on. Doing one of the workouts has to be outdoors. So that's been a lot of fun, I have to say. So this is my second time doing it this year. My goal was do 75 hard at least twice this year. Okay. And so this keeps me on track with doing that. And then one of my other goals is, or habits, is no ordering in. So I like to watch a lot of sports on TV, especially because I stopped watching the news. We'll talk about that later too. And and I don't know about you guys, but when you watch sports, they show a lot of like pizza commercials and stuff. And so you're like, oh man, that looks good. You're like, nope, nope, nope. Don't order in. Don't order in. So I have found that this really tends to keep me on track. And so I would highly recommend that you guys try it. On the back side of mine, which is a big mess, I have 2 index cards. And I'll talk about the first one now. The first one is a list of wins. It's basically a highlight reel of my life. And it's 10 things that have been great. I'll share one with you. Like one was 2 years ago, I won the Zywave Cyber Lawyer of the Year award. Yeah, thank you. So that's kind of a big deal. So I was like, man, I never thought that would happen. So that's on my list. So if I'm ever feeling like down or struggling with something, I look at that and I'm like, yeah, look at, you were able to do this, you were able to do that. I've had a ton of knee surgeries. You were able to recover from all those things. Like these are little tricks you can use. It's, like I say, basically your highlight reel. So I put it on the back of this because that's good to look at every day too. So as I say, you don't have to use this, something like this. If you want this, just let me know and be happy to send it to you. But using tools like this tend to keep people on track. And we all go off track sometimes. The trick is to not go off track 2 days in a row. So, if you have one bad day, don't say, oh, well, I give up now, Like I missed day 32 of 75 hard. Oh, well, I might as well have an ice cream soda or ice cream sundae. Get that fried chicken from the gas station. So, you don't want to do that. And you don't want to have 2 days in a row. So just FYI on that. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is a little graphic that I put together on Canva. I will not admit to you how much time it took me to do this because I'm not very good yet on Canva. But this represents my values. And so excellence is kind of the overriding value. And what does that mean to me? Very, very subjective, you guys. I'm not telling anybody these should be their values. But these are the things it means to me. Am I a person of integrity? Do I have discipline? Am I resilient? Can I stands for constant and never-ending improvement or growth? Am I always looking to grow? Am I looking to give service? Am I a person who is looking to add value, as we were talking about before, to other people's lives? And am I in alignment? Are my actions in alignment with these values that I profess to have? And as I already mentioned, alignment is my word for the year. When you act in alignment with your values and your disciplines and your goals, I find my life goes much more easily. My life is tremendously simplified. You eliminate negotiating with yourself. Well, I don't feel like getting up today. Well, maybe if I get up like in 10 minutes and like all of this stuff, you take all of this negotiating away. Maybe, I'll stay up and watch one more episode on Netflix, or yeah, maybe we'll have that one more glass of wine, even though I said I wasn't going to. It's so much easier to say no than to negotiate with yourself. And so when I think of the word alignment, I think of not negotiating with myself. My actions should be in alignment with what I profess to believe and value. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so one of the key ways to act in alignment with your goals and with your values is to control your environment. I don't think people appreciate how significant a factor this is. And I'll give you like a really, really easy example. Let's say you're trying not to drink alcohol. Don't keep alcohol in your house, right? That's a really, really easy example. Don't, if you're trying to, have a healthier diet, don't stock your refrigerator with ice cream, like all kinds of stuff that are not in alignment with that. So the things in your home are they're relatively intuitive, the things that you should be doing. But let's talk about your workplace, which may also be your home, as it is for me. And I usually work upstairs, but it's too hot upstairs today because of the heat wave. So I'm down here today. But your workplace should not become a distraction to you. A lot of people have a lot of clutter in their workplace, and there's plenty of research out there that says if you have like a cluttered workplace, it becomes very, very hard for you to focus. And so my recommendation is take care of that workplace, make it neat, don't create your own distractions. Another thing that relates to both the workplace and the home, I think all of us can walk through our homes, walk through our workplace, and look at little things that we'd like to fix. You're like, oh man, I got to do something. That door squeaks every time I open it. I really have to fix it. Or, I really have to change that light bulb. These little things you do. And I don't think people realize how much that drains on your brain. If every time you're walking by, you're like, oh man, I really need to clean up that pile of papers over there, whatever it is. I would recommend setting aside like a half a day on a Saturday or something like that, making a list of these things and just taking care of them so that you'll be able to focus on whatever you need to focus on and not be distracted by these things. Your nutrition, we already kind of mentioned this. If you don't have things that will tempt you, it's much easier to avoid, not have to make that choice, not have to exercise that willpower than putting yourself in the position of looking at, that plate of donuts, for example. But it's much easier if they're not there. So, making those things easy on yourself is really, really important. Keeping your goals in front of you. Keep your goals where you can see them. Make them a screensaver on your phone. Write them down and do this kind of thing. Some people put sticky notes on their bathroom mirrors, even in their cars, screensavers, all kinds of things, but keep those things in front of you. People also, this is a good trick that I don't use this anymore because I was cluttering up my calendar too much, but you can put reminders in your calendar. And just like if there's something that you need to remind yourself of it on a daily basis, put it in. Yeah, every day at 4 o'clock, this is going to pop up and it's going to ground me. So my coach, who I mentioned earlier, he was 7 years old and his mom died of a terrible disease. And she used to come to the dining room table every day after school with an IV stand. And they had a hospital bed set up in the house. She was literally dying before their eyes, and she had to divorce the kid's dad because he was a drug addict and an alcoholic. And so it was a very, very bad situation. And she died when she was 37 years old. And my coach's burn is to really create and give life to her legacy. And so his reminder every morning when he gets up, it's actually his alarm when he gets up, her name pops up. And so he sees that every day, and then he writes it down every day. And he said, do you think I'm hitting the snooze button? Do you think I'm not going to do what I have to do when I've already outlived my mom and I've got this extra time? And that keeps him going. That's the type of leverage that you can get over yourself if you kind of take these steps that I've been talking about, and they really do keep you on track. And so I mentioned, putting the reminders on the phone, putting a screensaver on the phone. I'll have all kinds of things on mine, from like a scripture verse that really might speak to me on any good given day, or a great quote. And, it just sits right there. And every time I pick up my phone, there it is. And also the apps on your phone. If you're inclined to spend way too much time on social media, you're always like, oh, what's going on Instagram, or what's going on TikTok. Take the apps off your phone and don't allow them to become a distraction for you. And that is a really strong way of controlling your environment, even if you do it only for a little while, until you break that habit of having to check all the time. So that is something that I would suggest, especially for your generation. These aren't things that we had to deal with when we were young, and so I certainly don't envy you having to do that. Um, there's some studies out, and another study is underway right now to try to drill down even further on this point. They did testing of students. I think it was in Montreal. I can't remember, where they tested students, their university students, with two control situations. One set of students had their phone on their desk while they were taking the test, but they couldn't look at it. The phone was down. And then they had another group of students take the same test, but they could not have the phone on the desk. They had to put the phone in the bag or not bring it into the room. That second group scored so much higher than the first group on the test, because just having the phone sitting there and seeing it there created a distraction. Because you see the phone, you're like, oh, I wonder oh, did I get that email? Oh, did I do this or do that? It just shows you how powerful all this stuff is, and people don't realize it. And so that's why I suggest, if you're going to be distracted, and just say, let me just pop on Instagram for 5 minutes. If you don't have the app, that temptation goes away. And then when you break that habit of doing it all the time, it becomes less of a pull, less strong. So again, these are subjective. It's whatever works for you, but avoid putting yourself in a situation where you're resisting temptation all day long. Willpower fades towards the end of the day. If you're not exercising it all the time, it'll stay stronger for you when you get to like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 5 o'clock, and you told yourself you'd go to the gym, and your buddies are like, come on, let's go grab a beer. So just make it easy on yourself. Okay, next slide. All right. What's another great way to protect your mindset? Controlling what you're letting in, what you're hearing, what you're reading, what you're seeing. So one of the most important things and I am really not kidding here, because this goes right to your identity. One of the most important factors is how you talk to yourself and about yourself. We say things to ourselves that we would never say to another human being. If you have kids or a significant other, or a family member or a friend, and somebody said those things to your person, you would be irate. But we say these things to ourselves all the time, and we need to stop doing that. And if we know we're not achieving what we should be, if we're making a mistake we shouldn't be making, then we just use it to say, I am going to get better in this space. But those of us who tend to say, oh, you're such an idiot, and you're this and you're that, very, 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 very harmful to yourself and to your self-esteem. And in fact, this is part of the what I'm going to be covering in my second book that's coming out very soon. And I won't tell you too much more about that, but how you talk to yourself is huge. The other thing, I kind of alluded to it, is the news, negative news. And we're so polarized now as a country, and no matter which news station you listen to, whether it's the conservative one, whether it's the liberal one, whether it's the one that says they're in between, they're always like a lot of gloom and doom. A lot of the other guys are horrible and terrible, and they're out to kill everybody, and all that. And when you take that in constantly, it doesn't serve any purpose. I'm not saying not to be informed as a responsible citizen, and you kind of hear enough things going on just being a professional in the world without sitting there and watching the news or having MSNBC on in the background all day or whatever people do. And I used to do that, and I found myself living and dying by every tweet that somebody would put out, and it's crazy. And so I just stopped. Same thing with social media. We all use social media. I'm huge on LinkedIn, but I also do Instagram to a degree. I mostly use it for my business, but I curate very carefully who I follow. And I'm always looking for like uplifting, positive content. One of the real dangers of social media is that it's everybody's highlight reel. They don't show themselves when they look like crap, and they feel awful. They're not putting those videos online. So that natural comparison starts to happen. And so, be very, very careful about social media. I saw a question pop in. Were you able to catch that one, Tanta?
Yes. So Patrick, I don't know if you're in a space where you can unmute yourself. I'd love for you to be able to ask your question.
Yeah, I mean, my question was just trying to, I mean, if you imagine, I always think of Venn diagrams with a lot of these things. And so, like, getting them all to happen all at the same time, because, you know, while you're working or doing stuff like that, it's tough to find the time to do them all separately. So, how would you, in my question, like, how do you align using your word, some of them all at the same time, especially going from like the actual task to how you do the task?
Yeah, that's really challenging. And as I said, especially for young professionals, when you really don't have all that control over your schedule, or even a senior professional, like if I had a trial or an arbitration in London, you know, other things, kind of slid. And this is where I think like this idea of balance gets so twisted in this world that it's not really spending the same amount of time on each of these different areas of your life. But the key is to never lose sight of any of them. So maybe you can't do your full workout because you're too busy with work or whatever. Now, this assumes that, you're taking reasonable steps to maybe get up a little earlier than you used to be able to do those types of things, because there is sacrifice involved in all of this. But you might only be able to do like a 15-minute workout versus an hour and a half. The key is to never let any of them go, completely untouched. Any of those areas go completely untouched. And on the relationship side, what I think really, really helps, because if you're like slammed at work, communicate that to your loved ones, to your family, and say, listen, I'm going into a really, really tough time. I'm going to have a really tough couple of weeks, so I'm not going to be able to, I'm going to be late, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be do that. I really could appreciate your support through this time. Please don't take this as I'm prioritizing work over you. This is just like the ebb and flow of the modern workplace. And communication, I think, really helps. And ask them to support you, as opposed, and then they're on your side versus feeling victimized by your lack of attention. Does that help at all?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool, good. All right, where were we? Um, oh yeah, binge watching is another. Oh, I better speed it up because we're we're going through the time. So binge watching, like staying up all night watching that final episode, which turns out, well, one more, and then you're too tired to do a good job at work the next day. We see people fall in that trap all the time. The next one is a little bit hard, and it can be difficult as young employees in the workplace. People who I call energy vampires, people who are the complainers, who will come in your office or call you up and just complain how horrible their lives are, and nobody understands them, and they are like the epitome of victims, and they just suck the life out of you. And unfortunately, in my career, I worked with several people like that, where I just became a little less available to them. Yeah, I'm not going to go to lunch today, or they would pop into my office and say, "Oh, I can't chat right now. I'm getting ready for this or that." And just kind of they kind of get the hint after a while. But it's very important to protect yourself from people like that, because they add nothing. They suck the life out of you. And now you're making up time because you spent an hour listening to them complain. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, so yeah, my favorite slides are coming up now. So some mindset hacks that really, really work, that will keep you on track. I know this works for a fact. There's science behind all of it, and I know from personal experience. So one is having this attitude of gratitude, like every morning when you wake up, instead of being like, oh, another day, blah blah blah. So we skip back to the old slide. But having an attitude every morning of, all right, I have I'm a spiritual person. Thank you, God, for this day. Thank you, God, I'm alive and I'm healthy and I live in a house and I have a roof. And you just like recite off these things. What you notice and what you appreciate, you get more of. And I know that's true. I'm grateful for my kids. I'm grateful for my dog. I'm grateful for my job. Even if it's hard, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for this. Having this attitude makes all the difference in the world. This second point could not be more important. The people who succeed in life and in their careers are the people who operate according to their standards versus their feelings. So the people who are like, I'm tired, I don't feel like it, I'm not in the mood, those are the people who sabotage themselves all the time. They're feeling angry, so they think they can act out. I have seen so many people, it's really not funny, at all levels, sabotage their reputations and their careers by being unable to control their feelings and their emotions, whether it's breaking down in tears in the office place, whether it's being in the fetal position on the floor in the office, whether it's exploding in a rage in the office. The people who feel they need to gossip and complain because their ego is hurt, they're feeling wronged and victimized, those people never ever achieve their potential. So you want to live to your standards, and your standards are a direct reflection of those identities that we talked about before. And so if you're a person of integrity and you show up and you do this and that every single day, you don't have time for I don't feel like it. I have work to do. Okay, we already talked about keeping your goals front and center, constant reminders. Music. I have a curated playlist. I think, Tindek, I think we talked about this. I have a playlist that's literally called Feel Good. And if there's a day that is like, I don't, maybe I'm not inherently like whatever, I just put that on. And you can't be in a bad mood. I can. You might be, because you would probably hate these songs, but it just puts you in a good mood. I am statements. Very important. What do you tell yourself? Like I already told you, like I am fit, lean, and strong. I tell myself every day. I am statements are invaluable. That's the second index card here. I have like 5 or 6 of them, and I read them. I know them by heart, but I say them every day. Here's another really good trick. When something happens that is not favorable, like not a great thing, instead of saying to yourself, why does this happen to me? Why does this always happen to me? Things of that nature, because your brain will start to search, well, why does that always happen to you? Well, because I'm a big loser. That's why it always happens to me, because I'm always making stupid mistakes. Or how can I make this better? What's one step I can take right now to improve this? And take the focus off of why this happens to you versus how you can improve it. This is a very, very effective list. A trick. Never say it list. I have a list of words that will never come out of my mouth, except for when I talk about my never say it list. Um, I'm tired. I don't feel like it. I'm not in the mood. The only time I say things like that is when I'm not doing something that I should be doing. And even just saying I'm tired makes you feel more tired. Not to forget then the impact on other people when you're saying these defeatist things all the time. I worked with a guy, that was the inception point of the list. I worked with a guy who came into work every day. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Next thing you know, everybody's yawning. We all felt great till he got in. And so these things are contagious. Your mindset, your attitude is contagious. Your vibe and your energy are contagious. And a lot of that is the words that you say and the things that you think. I already previewed these ultimate questions to stay on track, which is once a month. What are the actions and disciplines that have worked well for me over the past 30 days? And what are some areas that I need to improve? These self-audit questions are very powerful. I would recommend that you ask yourself these questions at least once a month. All right, next slide. So don't take all this just from me, guys. Let's see what Albert Einstein has to say about all this stuff. He says the most important decision we make is whether we believe we live in a friendly or hostile universe. So if you get up every day expecting good things to happen, that people are out to help you, that the world is a friendly place for you to succeed, that events will conspire for you in your favor if you put in the work and the effort, versus everybody's out to get me. I'm just like this big victim. And so take it from Albert Einstein. Adopting this type of mindset is really, really effective. And you'll just have a happier life. Okay, next slide. All right, so how do you bring your best mindset to work? How do you do that? So what's your vibe? What's the energy you give off when you show up on a Zoom, when you walk into the office, a conference room? What are you saying? What's your body language? Are you bringing people in, or are you repelling people? So let me tell you a real quick story. When I was a first-year lawyer, I had been working with the biggest partner in my law firm. Don't ask me how this happened because, as you know from my book title, I didn't go to Harvard or Yale or anything like that. But this guy loved working with me and he gave me a lot of opportunities. One Monday morning, I was walking down the hall early in the morning. He and I passed in the hallway. His name was Doug. And he said, hey, Judy, good morning. How are you? I said, I'm great, Doug. How are you? And he stopped in his tracks and he says, that's why I love working with you. And I said, why? Like, I didn't know what he meant. And he says, you're upbeat, you're positive. Now, because of that, that wasn't contrived, that was just, how I am. That was attractive to him. He was the guy because he was like that. He was the guy with the big book of business. It was his name on this 300 or 400 lawyer law firm. His name was on the door and on the letterhead. He was the one with all the clients. And he gave me all these great opportunities to go to trial, et cetera, which then enabled me to grow in my career. All because I was like, I'm great. Instead of, oh, Monday morning, oh man, why are the weekends so short? Think about it. What vibe are you giving off? Always be the most prepared, you guys, especially like for meetings or things like that. Do that extra homework. Preparation not only allows you to do your job better, but it gives you so much more confidence, and it is an anxiety killer. If you are prepared, you're not going to be anxious because you know. Okay, focus. Focus is really, really key. If you have diluted focus, you'll have diluted results. We talked a lot about that already, like get those apps away, put the phone away, focus on what you need to focus on. We talked about agency, meaning taking ownership of your life and not being a victim. We talked about the growth mindset. Be proactive, be that person who anticipates what's going to happen. This is a real value add. Just don't do what you're told. Be proactive, be anticipatory, volunteer, get your hand up, make your boss's life easier. remember, you're in the service business, no matter what your job is, and the most important relationship in the early stages of your career in particular is your relationship with your boss. And that good review you get, all that most important thing. And I think it was Harvard Business School study that proves that that's not just Selby telling you this. And approach each relationship with a client or colleagues as a relationship and not a transaction. Big difference. It's a relationship. You're there to make the other person's life easier. And if we go to the next slide, and then maybe we can take a Jacob's question at the same time. This is a great quote that supports what I was just talking about. This is by a gentleman named Zig Ziglar. And he says, you get what you want in life by helping other people get what they want in life. And that's especially true as a young employee. If you make your boss's life easier, I'm telling you, it's the best thing you can do for you. Jacob?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. My camera for some reason isn't working. Thank you, Judy, so far. It's been pretty great. But I have a quick question. I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but let's say you do this, you do all these things 3 weeks in a row, because I've done this before. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna change my life and go in a growth mindset. 3 weeks later, you hit a burnout where you just crash. You can't do it anymore. And you like fall into back to the old habits because it's easier. What do you recommend for that?
Yeah, that's where the concept of, not letting one bad day, that one crash day, become your new norm. Just say, you know what? I had that one bad day. I got to get back on. And how do you motivate yourself to do that? You go back to your burn. You're like, why am I doing this in the first place? Yeah, I'm trying to retire my parents. I'm trying to pay off student loan debt. I'm trying to get fit and lean so that, I'll be alive to walk my daughter down the aisle when she gets married. So I can be a good husband or a father with energy to play with my children. Things along those lines. So go back. Your burn should really give you leverage over whatever temptations or weaknesses that you have in your life. Is that helpful?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. All right, so let's go to that next slide because it's one of my favorite slides. And I know I keep saying that. Okay, so here are some things that help you to make really good choices. Here's a do this list and a don't do this list. So the first thing is be a person of discipline. Discipline yourself before other people discipline you, because that can happen in the workplace and that's really not good. But life has a way of disciplining you anyway, even outside of the workplace. So, exercise discipline over yourself. Don't wait for motivation. Motivation ebbs and flows. We can't all listen to a lecture, a rah-rah speech every single morning to go, go, go. A lot of it has to be intuitive, and it's too dependent on other things. So lean on discipline. Don't wait for motivation. When you're doing something and you're feeling like you're not particularly perfect at it, focus on your intention. So when you're writing an article or doing an email or doing something and you're like, oh, this isn't great, focus on just doing the best you can do. Don't focus on perfection because that leads to procrastination and then you never get anything done. So intend to do your best work versus looking for perfection. There is no such thing. Take ownership over your work. Don't blame. Don't make excuses. If you make a mistake, hand up, learn from it. Don't do it again, versus blaming, this was his fault. It was her fault. It's such a victimhood. Never. It's so unattractive and it's not attractive to other people, but it eats away at your self-esteem. Get known for the right reasons in the workplace. Don't keep your name off the wrong lists I have here. Follow the rules. Don't be the one who's always showing up late. Don't be the one who's not, if you're a lawyer, entering your time correctly. Don't be the one who is dressing inappropriately. Don't be the one who's sneaking out. follow the rules, stay on the right list, get off the wrong list. We all face challenges every single day, every single day. The people who succeed are the ones who say, where's the opportunity in this? Where is the opportunity in this problem? Problems are the best sources of opportunities. That's why so many of today's billionaires, those fortunes started in the Depression or some other horrible recession. It always happens versus looking to be offended. I used to work with a guy who I honestly think he got up every morning, like with one of those giga counters or whatever it is, just looking for things to be offended by. Who wasn't nice to him? Who cut him off at traffic? Who was in his parking space? Who was this and who was that? Such a bad way to go through life. Look to give versus look to get. This is really important for networking, you guys. So if you're starting to go out to networking events and conferences, if you're feeling anxious and self-conscious about walking in, you're probably too focused on yourself. Instead, focus on the other people in the room, focus on being more interested in them, and look to give. Be prepared, do your homework before you go, but look to see where you can add value, whether it's saying, hey, I really enjoyed your presentation this afternoon. That means a lot. Like somebody like me who speaks all the time, you remember when somebody comes up to you and says something like that. So look to give, not get. That's also important for social media, like on LinkedIn, for example. We already talked about this. Ask what's one thing I can do to make the situation better versus asking, why does this always happen to me? A lot of people are a hero at the start. They get all gung-ho, January 1st, January 2nd, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. And they're like the best for 5 minutes. This is why gyms make so much money. They make all their money, January 1. And by January 6th, the gyms are all empty again. So, train yourself to stick with things like kind of relative to Jacob's question. If you find yourself falling off the wagon, get right back on again. We talked about this too. Live up to your standards, not to your values, instead of living by your feelings, living by your moods. Okay. One more slide, I think. Oh yeah, let's go to the next one, please. And I'm fine if you want to make this available to everybody afterwards. This is a framework I put together for you to think about when you do have problems or challenges that you need to deal with in your life. So it's a six-part flow, I'll say, to consider for dealing with these things. So one is, you have to figure out what it is, identify what it is, develop a game plan of how to do it that's in alignment with your values and your goals. Commit to doing this is where a lot of people don't do it. They will not commit. So commit to taking that action and do it. Then consider, am I moving? Am I going in the right direction here? There's a great quote that people say, yeah, they're all committed and they're committed to finding the sunrise. And so they're getting up every day and they're running like lunatics with great form and all this stuff, but they're running west instead of east. So evaluate, make sure you're going in the right direction. If you need to course correct, do it. And then number 6 is the conversion, the outcome. Did you achieve what you wanted to achieve? So, debrief yourself on it. And this is a nice framework that helps you break things down when you're asking yourself that question, what's one step I can take in the right direction? So this is something I'll throw out there for you guys to consider. That might be it for slides. Yes, and there's my most important thing. You got this, you guys. It's such a difference maker in your career. You have no idea. I have seen so many people sabotage their careers and their success by not having like a great mindset in the workplace. And so I wish I had the benefit of this type of presentation, but it was a lot of self-learning. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And connect with me on LinkedIn. I try to put out some good, valuable content every day on there, and I'd love to answer any follow-up questions you may have. It would be my privilege.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Judy. Thank you for hanging out with us for an hour. And I truly appreciate it. You mentioned that this information wasn't readily available to you and you wish you had it when you were at the stage that they were. So thank you so much for taking the time to put it all together and to share that knowledge with this group of young professionals as they're embarking on their careers. We truly appreciate it.
It is
Um,
absolutely my pleasure, and it is something I think that should be part of curriculums and all, and it just makes such a difference in how people approach their lives. And one real quick story before we jump, like this thing where I talk about the whole person and bringing yourself to work. I actually sent this to a young professional who was interested in it, and I said, "Oh, did you fill out the form?" And she said, "Well, you know what? I'm really focused on my job, and so I only did the career part. I didn't do the whole thing." And she didn't understand that her ability to achieve well at work, she needs to be the best she can be in all these areas for life, even though it's not, as we were saying before, like equal split of time. And so we're integrated, complex beings. And I really honestly believe this will serve you all well.
Thank you. We truly appreciate that.
My
So for all of the students who are here with us, as you know, we do this on a weekly basis. Our next session is going to be next week, Thursday, July 3rd, from 1 to 2 Eastern. Our presenting company is going to be Argo Group, and our guest speaker is going to help us explore ways to build a career within insurance. So definitely take a moment to sign up. We have the entire 2025 schedule up on the website. So just click on each link, sign up for our sessions, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you again, Judy. We
Oh, my
appreciate
pleasure. Thank
you.
you for everybody who prioritized this and came and joined us today. Thank you. Aw.
Absolutely. Thank you
Bye,
all.
everybody.
Catch you
Happy 4th.
later.
Happy 4th of
Happy
July.
4th.
Stay cool. Bye.
Bye.